Welcome, Middlers, to the Medium in the Middle podcast. My name is Stephanie, and I take you on a journey of self-discovery and spiritual exploration. I am a Reiki master teacher, a spiritual and business mentor, and of course, a psychic medium. And I am here to share my story and help you tap into your extraordinary abilities. Join me every Wednesday as we dive into the realms of intuition, energy healing, and all things mystical. Whether you're a seasoned spiritual seeker or just dipping your toes into the magical waters, this podcast is your go-to source for inspiration, guidance, and a whole lot of lessons and laughter along the way. Let's get started. Hello, Middlers. Welcome to episode 245. My name is Stephanie. I am the medium in the middle. And today we're doing a story time about when I almost joined a cult. Now, I've been sitting on this episode since the whole twin flame thing on Netflix came out. And right now I have two series that I really want to do podcasts on. So one's a little love story and one's a manifesting story. But each of those stories are like a 3-part series. So I don't want to leave you like a cliffhanger into the new year. So I was like, what can I talk about today? And I was like, I've never told this story and it might be time. So there's this podcast called Sounds Like a Cult, I think it is. And if you haven't listened to it, it's really good, where they go through the different things that sound like a cult and they decide if it's a cult or not. And I really like listening to their episodes, but they did an episode on the cult of Lululemon. And you guys all know I used to work at Lululemon. I loved it. And it was very culty, and I could see how it was culty, but it was like a good cult of like personal growth and personal responsibility and stretchy pants and working out and yoga and no back talk and all. They had a full language, a Lululemon language. I miss it. So I do recognize when I'm like in a cult and I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm in this cult. Also, I CrossFit, so I'm in the CrossFit cult. I have maybe like cult-like behaviors, but never deep. And I'm in the spiritual realm. So I see like the spiritual cults and I'm like, oh, like those are scary. And I want to start this story off at the beginning, where all stories begin, because I didn't realize that I almost entered this cult until literally I was watching the Twin Flame documentary that was all over Netflix. I think it was last winter. And I was like, how do people fall for this? How do people end up in this? And I was just like thinking about it. And I was like, well, this one experience that I have, I think I almost worked for a cult. So we're better to share this story than my spiritual podcast. So this has nothing to do with Reiki or mediumship, but it is a good story. Okay, I'm not going to do a card pull today because honestly, I'm not in the mood. It's the end of the year. We're fading. So I'm going to save my energy to tell you this podcast episode. And the only announcements that I have for you are the last Mediumship Practice Circle is happening on December 14th, the last circle of the year. There will be more in January. The Reiki courses are sold out for December. There is still a few spots left in the level 2 this weekend, but level 1 is full. So January courses are out. Reiki level 1 is January 11th, 12th. Reiki level 2 is January 25th, 26th. And the most exciting thing is that my mentorship is opening on December 5th. Went to the wait list today. So if you want to work with me in a mentorship capacity, my specialties are Reiki, mediumship, and business development. So the application process is just to make sure that you are in my wheelhouse and I can actually help you. And we will be starting early January and working together until April. So if you are looking for a mentor into 2025 for the first few months, it's a great time for mentorship. I'll leave the links down below, but it'll be opening on the 5th. So depending on when you're listening to this episode. So for this story, I have to take you back. I was still living in Ontario and I was still engaged to Joe. If you're an OG listener, you know. If you're not an OG listener, Joe was my ex-fiance when I lived in Ontario. So if you are an OG listener, you would have heard all these, but it would have been years ago, all of these stories, and many, many, many episodes ago, probably like in the 50s, I would guess. And now we're at episode 245. So to refresh your memory, I was living in Ontario. I was engaged to some guy. And I was working at Lululemon. Full circle. And Lululemon teaches you to be uncomfortable. And Lululemon teaches you that nothing happens inside your comfort zone. And in order to grow, you need to be uncomfortable. So I was taking my yoga teacher training in Costa Rica, and I wanted to travel by myself. So I traveled Costa Rica by myself for a month. And then I was like, I need to quit Lululemon because nothing changes if nothing changes. And I'm the one who's in charge of my life and my destiny, and I can't just work at Lululemon forever and sell black stretchy pants. Like, what am I doing with my life? So at this time, I was also coaching CrossFit and trying to start my own business. I used to do eyelash extensions. And honestly, I did that business because I wanted to learn business. It was like a low stakes I could learn about business and websites and marketing, and it taught me a lot. So I don't regret it. So anyway, so I was doing all these random things, and I was like, I need to make myself uncomfortable. I need to quit my job. So I quit my job at Lululemon, and I was still coaching and doing lashes and I think Reiki at this time. Yes, I would have just gotten my Reiki training. So I was doing all these little side things, and I was going to Costa Rica for a month. And then when I came back from Costa Rica, I was going to Banff for a wedding. And it was the first time that I would have came back to Banff after I lived here. There's a whole episode called Why Banff, if you want to listen to that, where I go into detail. But I hadn't come back to Banff. It was like a sore wound that I didn't want to talk about. So I was going to Costa Rica, coming back, and then I'd be in Banff and then coming back. So I was like, when I come back from Banff, I'll start to find a new job. So I went to Costa Rica, had an amazing time, went to Banff, was convinced I needed to move back to Banff. So I still remember, and sorry if you've heard this before, but I still remember we were flying from Toronto to Calgary, and the plane's wheels had not even touched down in Calgary, and I had a window seat and I saw the mountains. I was smiling so big, and before the wheels even touched down, I was sitting beside Joe, and I was like, Joe, we're moving back. Joe, we're moving back. Joe, we're moving back. Oh my God, we're moving back. And then our friends picked us up, and I'm like, we're moving back. We're moving back. And then we went for lunch and we drove around, and then they drove us to Banff. And by the time I got to Banff, we were going for food again. And I remember I was walking down Banff Avenue holding my cheeks because my face hurt because I had been smiling so much. And I didn't realize how much I wasn't smiling. And I was like, my face hurts so much from smiling. My face hurts so much from smiling. I'm moving back. I'm moving back. Anyways, so I had this big epiphany that I needed to move back to Banff. So this is July. And then I go back home and I try to find a job. And this was before, I need to put a huge disclaimer on this story. This was before I was intuitive or knew anything about, I am not the Steph I am today. I am just a muggle at this point. I'm a muggle who took their Reiki training a few months ago. So I'm kind of getting it starting, but nowhere near what I know now. So I'm just an average Joe CrossFitter, Lululemon culter person. So I come back home and I start to look for jobs. And I've told the story on the podcast before, so again, sorry this is a repeat. When I tell you that no one would hire me, no one, not McDonald's, not Tim Hortons, not Walmart, no one would hire me. And I started to follow up on a lot of these places being I am so overly qualified. I have retail experience. I have manager experience. I have event planning experience. I am a good worker. Please, anyone hire me. I was getting to a point where I was I need a job. And no one would hire me. So this opportunity was I would say it was the third last lesson. So it was the third thing that happened before I finally realized what the universe was trying to tell me. Because again, way back then, I didn't know the universe was trying to tell me anything. So I had found this job online. I think it was on Kijiji or what's that one that's blue? I even forget now. Job Seekers or something. I was on those websites all day, every day, refreshing. And this seemed like a really cool job. So the job was an at-home rehab center and you would like work with people who were there for different reasons, but it was like you would cook with them and you would do activities with them and you would do fitness with them. So they were kind of looking for facilitators who would do all these things. And it was like event planning and fitness and food and like all these things that I really liked. And I was like, oh wow, like this would actually be a super cool job. And it was pretty close to where I lived. It was like 25 minutes away. So I went there for an interview and they showed me the property and they lived on this property and it was beautiful. And like they introduced me to everybody, the workers and the people who were there for like the rehab facilities. And we walked around and I met the owners and they gave me a book, classic cult behavior. They gave me a book to read before the next time I came back. And they were like really invested with me and they were like, we love your experience. We love that you're an exercise expert. We love that you're a people person. They were just pumping me up. And I was like, yeah, like I am all those things. So I think I went through a recruiter to find them. So we were like going through this third party person and then they wanted to bring me in for a trial run. And they were like, hey, we'll pay you for an 8-hour day. And like just to see if you mesh with us, see if you mesh with the people. And I was like, okay, cool. And it started at 6:30 a.m., which was the first red flag. And you had to be there at 6:30 a.m., but you didn't get paid till 7. I still distinctly remember this. They were like, well, your shift starts at 7 and you have to be ready. And I was like, so why can't I walk in at 6:58? Because I am a 6:58 person. Not that I would ever work at 7 a.m., but I'm definitely not being there 30 minutes early when you're not paying me at 6:30 a.m. So that was like my first point of contention. They're like, well, you have to be ready for your shift at 7. And I was like, okay, this seems weird. That was my first red flag. So I was there at 6:30 a.m. Actually, no, I wasn't there at 6:30 a.m. I think I showed up at 7. And they were kind of like giving me heck for being late. And I was like, I'm not late. You told me to be here at 7. They're like, yeah, we meant 6:30. And I was like, what? Anyways, I was half asleep. And then they did all these like things where like we all cooked together and cleaned together and ate the same things. And we talked about things at the table and we all went around in a circle and said things. And the second red flag was that they just like threw me in. Like they were just giving me their patients or whatever the people who were there were called. They were just like, okay, Steph's going to lead a fitness class now. And I was like, what? And I was just business casual with nothing prepared. And they're like, yeah, so the next hour is up to you and you're going to lead them through a fitness thing. Cause I would CrossFit, yoga teacher, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, like I can make up something on the fly with no equipment and no preparation. And you haven't told me how long or what they need. Or like, I was like, so guys, like, do you have any injuries? Like I don't know anything about you. And then I like went for a walk with the owner on the lawn and he like took me around the property and it was just like so secretive. There was like some rooms where like you couldn't go into, but then they brought me into them. And then it was like, okay, well, we all need to eat together and we all need to eat the same things. And then by the end of the day, I realized that something was up. So I was like, this is kind of weird. I'm going to go home and like think about it. It sounds like a cool job. It would be a good opportunity. I am desperate for a job because McDonald's won't hire me. Walmart won't hire me. No one will hire me. And these guys were like, yeah, like we really like you. We want to hire you. And then I still remember they wanted to offer me $16 an hour. And I remember that for a CrossFit class, I was getting paid $25 an hour. And I was like, when I coach, like the workout's already there, the equipment's already there. I don't have to make up anything. And I was like, and when I do PT, I get paid $70 an hour when I am doing all of that stuff and it's one-on-one work. So I was like, why would I do PT for personal training for $16 an hour when I get paid $70 at the gym? And then I was also like, and you're calling me a fitness expert. You want me to do yoga. You want me to do fitness. You want me to do event planning. You want me to do this. You want me to do that. And all of that is $16. So anyway, so I was really hung up on the price that they were trying to get me to work for. So we were going back with the recruiter and I was like, I just absolutely cannot even work for that. And then Buddy ended up calling me and we were on the phone and I was just like, you're calling me an expert in this and you're saying you want me for all of these skills that I have, but then you're giving me minimum wage? Like, no. And we just like couldn't find an agreement. And I still didn't get paid for my one day of free. He told me he would pay me $18 an hour for that day. He never did. But I got a free book and a free meal. Anyways, And then I remember sitting there afterwards being like, that was such a weird experience. So then I started to Google it. And this was probably when my intuition was just waking up. And of course, I Googled it, and it was all of these things where they used to, somehow I digged. And I found that they used to have a rehab center in BC, and it closed down, and there was all this drama. And they opened up this one in Ontario, and it was trying to be all hush hush, which is why it was in the woods, and they only had like 4 people. But the people there also, I figured out through the website, were paying like $20,000 each. So I knew they were making money. So I'm like, how are you only paying me $18 an hour or $16 an hour? How are you only paying me $16 an hour when these people are paying you lots of money to be here? And we all had to cook together and clean together and like say weird things. Anyways, it was really weird. And I don't remember a lot of the details, but I just remember something felt off. And I didn't end up getting the job. And this was the third last lesson where the universe was making it very clear that I wasn't supposed to be in Ontario. The next universe lesson that I got was finally I got this job at Sage, the oil store. And I love Sage. It's another Canadian-owned company, or it was when I worked for them. And everyone at Lululemon was like, "What, Steph, why aren't you coming back to Lululemon? Like, we would take you back in a heartbeat." And I was like, "Because, guys, I'm moving to Banff. And I don't want to leave you guys in 2 months. And also, who's going to hire me for 2 months?" I was like, I'm leaving to Banff. But right before I got this job, I was just like, okay, universe, like, I know I have to go back to Banff, but you have to give me money to move back to Banff. Like, I get it. You're not giving me Walmart. You're not giving me Tim Hortons because I have to go back to Banff. But like, I need money. I just went and did all these vacations. I went to Banff for a week. I went to Costa Rica for a month. Like, I need money. So within 3 days of that epiphany, I got this job at Sage. And it was like the perfect little job. It was cute. And while I was there, my manager really liked me and she gave me 3 raises. And I was like, oh, I feel bad because this woman doesn't know I'm leaving soon. And there was one day where she gave me like a big raise. It was like a $4 raise. And she told me that they were going to offer me my own store. She was like, there's a store that's opening that was like way closer to where I lived. Like I was driving almost an hour and the new store was going to be 20 minutes away. And it was all of these things. And I remember I went and told Joe, my fiance, and I was like, hey, like I got a $4 raise today. And there's a new store opening like way closer to us. And like my boss said, she's putting me up for it. And like they think I'd be good for a store and I'd be the store manager and la la la. And he was like, oh, like, so you're staying, like, you're not going to go to Banff. And I was like, no, I'm going. This is a test to see how bad I want to go. And I was like, yeah, like having my own store would be nice, but like, I'm like, that's the same. Like, I don't want to be doing the same. I'm being uncomfortable and I'm changing and I'm whatever I was doing back then. He was like, but Steph, you could have your own store. And I was like, yeah, la la la. Anyways, the next day I had to tell my boss that I was quitting. And she cried. I still remember her, Julie, shout out. And she was just like this amazing person. She was like, oh my God, like why? And I was like, I'm sorry, I have to go back to Banff. And she totally got it. Like she totally understood. But it was like so crazy to see how I couldn't get a job. I almost joined a cult. I finally realized I had to go back to Banff. So I had to get a job. Within 3 days, I got this job. Then within like a month, they were offering me store manager to have my own store. Just a little test to see if I wanted to stay. All this to say, trust your intuition. Trust when it's fishy. Trust when something's off. Trust when it feels weird. Because this is how you end up in a cult, like the twin flame people. Like, I'm sure it didn't seem all weird when they started, but there was definitely some weird signs, you know? So that's my story of how I almost joined a cult. Telling this story back, it doesn't seem as intense as it was, like in 2017 when this happened. Or 2018. I don't know why I confused those 2 years. I think it was 2018. So when something feels off, it's off. When someone won't pay you what you're worth, leave. I still can't believe he was trying to pay me $16 an hour. Anyways, glad I'm stubborn and very money driven. So that's my podcast for you guys this week. I hope it entertained you. I hope it made you think about your own life and if you ever almost joined a cult. Because it's kind of scary to think about. Also, if you haven't seen the Twin Flame documentary on Netflix, it's like very last year, but I was hooked. I was hooked into that drama and lore of the people who were getting suckered into that. And like in the spiritual realm, I can see how people get suckered into that. Like they use like good for evil. They use like good principles for bad. Like this is why integrity is so important. And also why I say this a lot in my courses. I was like, you can't be a phony in spiritual spaces. You'll get caught out. Like if you don't have integrity, you'll get caught. You can't lie to psychics because psychics know. Like if anyone ever tries to laugh at me, I just like tilt my head sideways. I'm like, you're trying to lie to a psychic right now? Like, yeah, LOL. But also, like, you can't be a bad person. You can't be out of integrity. You can't do shady stuff. Like, obviously, they got found out. But it's so transparent because, yeah, the truth will always prevail. So that's what I have for you this week. Just a little fun. I almost joined a cult episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll leave all the links you need down below if you want to join the Mediumship Practice Circle or if you're interested in mentorship. But until next Wednesday, Middlers, when I see you in your ears, hope you have a wonderful week. Bye.